Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Get to Know Pet Nat. It's our first wine class of 2021. So welcome. If you're watching live with me, bear with me. And I guess if you're watching the recording, bear with me too. I haven't taught since November of 2020, so I'm a little rusty. So bear with me. One of the things that came to mind when I was scheduling classes was I wanted to give myself the first week of January just to kind of get my bearings after the holiday and kind of sort of maybe get the shop back in order because the shelves are always really bare after the holidays. So I didn't schedule this class for the first Thursday of January. I purposefully left it for this week. And after what happened last Wednesday, I was chatting with some people who were here, Patty and Kristen. I don't remember where we were doing this. We were DMing each other about the fact that I was so relieved that I didn't have to try to be a functioning person on Thursday of last week. So it's been a week and I can kind of function and I can kind of talk about other things because last week would have been bad. So welcome. Welcome. There's joy in the world, guys. And it's called Pet Nat. And we're going to talk about it and it's going to be great. And we're going to have a really nice time. So if you have not filled out the poll yet, please do. I'm noticing that of the people who have answered, we've got a lot of people who don't think they've ever had a Pet Nat before. So that's cool. I'm excited to kind of see what y'all think of them. I know that there are at least 2 people who are reluctantly taking this class, which I didn't force you guys. I didn't make you sign up for Pet Nat class. So I just thought it was really funny that I'm getting called out for where's the option of rarely drink them because I don't like them. You don't have to be here. You get to be here. It's going to be great. So please do fill out the poll though, for those folks who haven't. And as you've already seen, again, if you're watching us live, do use the chat. So I threw out a question to get us kind of just going as to a book or a movie or a TV show that you've watched recently and loved. And there are lots of really great recommendations in here. So if you haven't scrolled back through, please do, because they're really great suggestions. I will say that I am on the Katie Hepler team last Thursday, or maybe last Wednesday night. No, last Thursday. I had given myself a day. We sat down to watch The Queen's Gambit. I don't watch TV really, ever. And I watch movies, but I don't really watch TV shows. And I sat down to watch The Queen's Gambit and I was like, okay, everybody tells me it's great and I'm going to get into it. And it was just the beginning was so sad. And I just couldn't handle sad last Thursday. And I was like, let's try this Bridgerton show. Well, that's all I did all weekend. So for those of you who need a little pick-me-up, I would recommend that. So let's, enough about that. Let's get started. And I'm super glad to see, I'm just going to give a shout out to Alexis's note there that her spouse, Jason, is joining us. Jason, I hope you aren't too embarrassed for me to say, he works at the Capitol. He is the Capitol police officer, I believe is the title. And I've been thinking about you and I've been worried about you and I will continue to be thinking and worrying about you until, we have reason to believe that we can breathe a little sigh of relief. So extra bonus that Jason is here and we're very happy to have him. So let's dig into Pet Nat. Capitol Police Officer. Good. Okay, great. I got his title right. I have never taught this class before, which seems kind of bizarre because I definitely talk about Pet Nats in sparkling wine classes that I've taught. And I tend to include them in private tastings and things like that when people express an interest in either bubbly or kind of lesser known wines, off the beaten path kind of wines, those kinds of things. I do tend to include them, but I've never devoted an entire class just to Pet Nats. So here we go. Things that you want to know, just kind of like base level fundamental information. Pet Nat is short for Pétillant Naturel, which means, oh, I'm sorry, my autocorrect seems to have corrected it there. That is an EL, not an AL, and I know I spelled it correctly, which is French for, roughly translates to naturally sparkling. So the way that these wines are made is quite like bottled conditioned beers are made. So it's basically the exact same process as, say, a Saison. Before primary fermentation is complete, the wines are put in the bottle and that's why they have the crown cap on them. So those caps that these bottles have on them can withstand more pressure than, say, a regular cork. So if you just put a regular cork in a Pet Nat, you do risk it exploding. There are some Pet Nats out there that will do just a cork, but you'll even see sometimes like a cork and a crown cap just to be extra safe. And some people do a champagne cork because those can withstand the pressure, but they are a little bit more expensive. And often with Pet Nats, as I've kind of mentioned throughout, they tend to be from more smaller wineries, a little more, I don't want to say experimental, but people who are a little more open to trying different methodologies. So it's not kind of the people who would go for a champagne cork usually from like an aesthetic standpoint too. I hope that kind of makes sense. So that's how these wines are made. They're made like beer. So you'll see, and I'll pull it out. It's not uncommon for them to have some sediment in the bottom, right? Just like a bottled conditioned beer, where this is the leftover yeast. It's up to you as to whether or not you want to drink it. It doesn't impart the same kind of like very strong yeastiness that it will in a beer, but it is, physical texture in your mouth. So it's kind of a personal preference thing. I don't mind it, but I know some people are very finicky about that kind of stuff. So up to you, but don't be scared. Pet Nats tend to be low in alcohol, so they're almost invariably going to be under 13%. And they often have a little bit of sweetness or fruitiness, and we'll kind of talk through that a bit more. But the reason why they are going to have that sweetness is that the only way for this to work, this method to work, is if the wine itself has enough sugar for the yeast to eat. So if you made a Pet Nat with a super bone dry wine, the yeast isn't going to have any food, and it's not going to end up being bubbly. And so then you just have like weird yeast floating that hasn't eaten stuff. And so that's not delicious. So that you will notice that they tend to have a little bit more sweetness to them. And I include this note here just to say that winemakers are really experimenting with the style. So this is a super ancient style of making wine. There's some records that kind of indicate that this might be like how all wine was originally made, before people kind of understood how fermentation worked. And knowing what I know about beer history, that kind of jives. That probably is what wine was like. So it's not that it's this like brand new method. It's been around forever, but it's recently kind of become cool, quite honestly. Within the last decade, it's become like a thing that people are doing. So you'll see wineries all over the world kind of trying it out and experimenting. And that can lead to really great, awesome, wonderful, fun things. And it can lead to like, yeah, dude, you're just trying to get on a trend. So that leads me to my next slide. Be aware. Pet Nats are inherently not reliable. They are a little unpredictable. The winemaker is sending out wine without having tasted the finished product. Now, with regular sparkling wine, a cava or a champagne or something like that, that's also true. That is also true. But they have at least gone through primary fermentation, and they have a good sense of what that wine tastes like with alcohol. And then they're just kind of figuring out the sweetness level. And that's how traditional sparkling wines are made. So with this, there's a little bit more mystery. So what I say is buy from wineries that you really trust. Buy from importers that you really, really trust, and get to know who you like. And it was also why I think we had one person say that they rarely drink them because they think they don't like them. And that's fair and fine. And I'm totally okay if you get to the end of this class and you still don't like them. That's fine. But there is a nice amount of variance. Pardon me for a second. There is a nice amount of variance between them. So if you've had one or two and you've thought like, they're not X enough for me, or I don't like them because they're Y, keep trying if you're open to it, because you might find something that is really kind of like totally up your alley. And yay, I'm glad. Thank you for being here. See, that's why. And you can start to see threads across varietals as well. So I'll talk about them as we kind of go through, but you can kind of start to see like, I really like pet nats that are made from this grape. Or when I've had pet nats made from, Malvasia, for instance, we're not tasting any Malvasias, and that's a pretty common grape that pet nats are made from. They're so floral, and like, that's not my thing. I don't like that. Okay, well now I know that, and I can avoid Malvasia pet nats in the future, right? So you can just kind of start to know that. One other thing of note before we dive in and start drinking. I'm sorry, two. I lied. Two. One of the add-ons to the fact that they are a little unpredictable is that for that reason, I think you'll notice if you bought all three wines, they're not cheap. They're not inexpensive because wineries are taking a risk. In our time at Table Wine, we've been open for 5 years. I have had a winery recall a pet nat. They were not happy with how it came out, and they pulled it. They asked the distributors to pull it from all of the shelves everywhere it was in the country, which is a huge financial burden, as you can imagine. So that's one of the reasons that they're not going to find a pet nat for $10. It's not cava, it's not prosecco. You can't just like pump it out and like, there you go. It's easy peasy. So I am aware of the cost on your pocketbook, and I appreciate that you kind of dove in for the fun, because it's worth it. It is worth it. And then the one last note that I do have here, because I know some people really care about this and some people don't give a hoot about it, but I think it's worth noting. The method that is used to make the wines qualifies as a natural method, meaning that they're not inoculating the wine with yeast. They're letting the native yeasts that were on the grape skins, possibly that are around in the air, they're letting them do the job. So technically the method is natural. The grapes that are used to make these wines don't have to be natural. So what does that mean? If you are somebody who really, really cares a lot about the natural wine movement, you're going to need to keep digging about whether or not the pet nat that you are about to order at the bar actually qualifies. If you're somebody who sometimes cares, sometimes doesn't, okay, well then I'm not going to worry about it too much. I had this one time and I liked it. And if you're somebody who's like, I don't really care about natural wine that much, I don't even know what that is, then great, don't worry about it. But that's just there of note, because you might see them designated as natural, because that is true, but varying levels of how the grapes are treated. I hope that all makes sense. Questions about any fundamental stuff, y'all, before we get started with the actual wines? No? Okay. Shout them out if you got them. So the way that I structured the trio was to show you a decently wide spectrum of the kinds of flavor profiles that you can go after when you are shopping for Pet Nat. As I said, it's trendy. It was trendy, and it's like remaining trendy. So I'm seeing more and more and more wineries making Pet Nat. So having a sense of what it is that you like or don't like is going to serve you well, because I think, like particularly say later this year, if we can all be together again, or next year, you might see these out. People, they're pretty, right? These almost every Pet Nat we've ever carried has a cool label. Somebody might find it pretty. They're interesting. They're unique wines. Like they're wines that you want to tell a story about. So I think that you're going to come across them. And so I want you to feel like decently well equipped to say, like, that's what I'm going after. That's what I like. So the designations that I kind of came up with are definitely my own. These are not like set in stone things, but I think that they will serve you well no matter if you're shopping with us or somewhere else. So we're starting with the brand Pet Nat, the very pretty flower label. And I'm calling this kind of the delicate side of things. So this is kind of, these are Pet Nats that are made from white grapes that inherently they themselves are kind of on the delicate end of the spectrum usually. So with this, you'll notice yellow and orange fruit notes. So that can mean apple, actual oranges, apricots, peaches, lemon, fruits that are yellow and orange, yellow cherry, those kinds of things. Sometimes you'll get floral notes in these wines. They do tend to have a little bit more sweetness to them because they are kind of on the lighter end of the light spectrum, if that makes any sense. So kind of what you're going to pick up on is the sweetness, because that's what's going to like really be there. I read a super awesome tip today from the owner of a winery called Donkey and Goat, and they make super cool, funky Pet Nats that used to be available in Madison and aren't anymore. But the owner of Donkey and Goat said, if you have a Pet Nat that you've had before, is too sweet for you, you can stick it in the sun for a couple of days, which I just thought was amazing. So you could just like put it on your windowsill, and that will like speed up the aging process. So more of the yeast will eat more of the sugar, and then it will be less sweet. I just thought it was awesome. So if you find yourself like tasting this tonight and thinking like, oh, it's a hint too sweet for me, try that and see how it goes. That said, do not age Pet Nat. Don't stick it in your cellar and forget about it. These are not wines that are meant to be kept. These are not wines that are meant to be cellared. They are wines that are meant to be drunk now. So, no, Katie, you wouldn't put it in the sun open. You would like, stick the bottle in the sun on the windowsill for a few days. So that's why you kind of like would have multiple bottles of the thing, right? Because if you leave it open, you'd have to guess that it's sweet, or you'd have to have had it prior to that, I guess. I don't know. I just thought it was a weird tip that I thought was worth mentioning. So I'm not telling everybody to like go stick it in the sun. So I have some grapes that are listed there as the most common ones. Malvasia I mentioned at the beginning, Gewurz. There is a rash of winemakers in California who make Pet Nat from Cabernet Franc, which is a red grape, but they make it without the skins. And so it's white. And so there's a whole slew of these. They tend to call them Blanc de Franc, which I just think is very clever. So pour yourself some if you haven't had it yet. And I'm going to make myself big and this small. Food pairing suggestions for a wine such as this. Brunch. Brunch. Fruit, mild cheeses, soft cheeses, things like that. Because of the low ABV, I really do think of these as day drinking wines. They're just fantastic for that. I have definitely been known to, pop one of these open at brunch and just kind of like, slowly sip on it over the course of the afternoon. Assuming that things are joyful on this coming Wednesday, Pet Nat would be an awesome choice, right? To watch an inauguration at noon and have a little Pet Nat and, a little bubbles. I love a breakfast wine. Don't you know? I love a breakfast wine. Other things to know about Pet Nats with this specific one, and then just kind of generally. The bubbles are pretty delicate, and that's going to be true for all three of the wines that we taste. And Alexis, I'm so glad. So Alexis shared with me that she was hesitant because she's not the biggest fan of effervescence. And I said, Pet Nats aren't as bubbly as other bubbles, as other bubbly wine. So try it, see what you think. And I think that's what I like about it. I love bubbles. But this is something that I think works across a broader spectrum. So I'm glad to hear that you like it. And not too sweet, right? I think that there is some nice tartness on the finish. It's not, I've had some that are so darn sweet. I just think it's I know this is not a helpful wine word, but pretty. It's just it's very elegant. It's very light and lightly floral. So Katya saying that Katya really likes this one makes me think that Drew does not like this one, which is fine. I just always totally read between the lines when couples are, saying things like that. No, he does. Oh, okay, good. And again, I really, honestly, I don't care. I think it's funny. Great. I'm glad that you're extra excited. Pam is asking tips on storing open bottles, like when you're the one drinker in your house and aren't going to drink a whole bottle to yourself. Can you save it for a day or two? You can. You definitely can. So what you're going to, why did I sip while I was in the middle of a sentence? I apologize for that, Pam. I just oh, that wine is right there and it's so darn tasty. I'm just going to sip it. Let me answer your question. Thank you. I still love you too. So you can keep them. The bubbles are definitely going to dissipate even more than with a regular sparkling wine. They're just not going to stay as bubbly. So if you happen to have a champagne stopper, the ones that kind of push down and clamp around the neck of the bottle, that'll do the best job. If you don't, you can honestly leave it in your fridge just as is, with literally nothing on it. You don't really want to stick something, don't shove a cork down in there because it does still have some carbonation and you do risk, that cork's flying off into your fridge somewhere. So the bubbles will dissipate and you will be left with is really lovely white wine. So, that's the case for that. Yeah. Maybe pour a little into a mason jar and drop it off at a friend's house or something. I don't know, it feels a shame to see it all go flat, but such is life, right? Connor's got that ahead of him too. And Alexis is saying it's slightly sweet, but the floral and light acid seem to balance it well too. Right? It is pretty. And I know that it kind of feels like it plants that seed in my mind because of the pretty flowers on the label. But I actually do think that that's real. One thing I mentioned at the beginning is that not all Pet Nats are made from natural grapes, naturally grown grapes. And I do know that some people who are watching do really care deeply about that kind of stuff. So I will say that this is made with certified organic grapes and they have natural wine practices through the vineyards. So this is from Van Boden. Van Boden is the importer listed there on the back. And Van Boden primarily deals with natural wines. They do make a few very rare exceptions, but they're pretty upfront about that information. And they're located in Minnesota, and they have just a stellar book. So their wines are pretty new to table wine, and I'm excited to have more of them. So heads up on that. Reminds you of Viognier flavors and aromas. Totally. It totally does, right? It's like light, bubbly Viognier. Sounds like delicious to me. Yeah. Who out there is being quiet and doesn't like it? Who's not a fan? Remember, I don't make the wines. Being quiet and very much enjoying it. Oh boy. Oh boy. I've got the two people who told me they didn't like Pet Nat enjoying this wine. I'm just so darn thrilled, guys. 2021 is going to be a better year. Ellen, I'm glad you love it. I love all the exclamation points. It's great. Side note, because I do think we have time for it. I think I've talked about this before. I had the opportunity to be the guest on a podcast called Wine Wars a couple times. One time where I kind of talked through my history. I'm going to put that in the chat. Wine Wars is the podcast. And it's a podcast with 4 hosts. And we did one episode live at Table Wine a couple of years ago at this point. And the challenge was the 4 different hosts gave me the wine that they hate, the wine that they think they just like, nope, there's no good version of it out there. And I had to find one that I thought was tasty. And we talked about like why they didn't like it and what it is that I thought was good about this. And one of the hosts picked Pet Nat. And I was like, that's a pretty broad category. And she's like, I hate them. I've never had one. I don't like them, whatever. And I was like, okay. And so I poured her Pet Nat of Cab Franc from California. And she just was like, this is so freaking delicious. And I loved it. It like brought me so much joy. All 4 of them, I won all 4 of them over. But that, I don't know, the Pet Nat love was particularly awesome for me. So that's my plug. Let me get back to comments. You don't normally like sweet or bubbly wines, but this is incredibly palatable. Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't know if you're having food right now, but if you aren't having it yet with food, like it becomes even more just like, it's just a lovely, and you guys are comparing it to a Funk Factory beer that I don't know that particular beer, but like it totally has some of that same almost lambic-like tartness. It's light, right? It's just like, yeah, I feel you on that. Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad to have people like, I don't know what else to say. It's nice. I like it. Are there many or any red Pet Nats out there? They're rare. They are very rare. So what is more common is actually what we're going to do next, which is rosé. And even that's not super common. We have from time to time carried red Pet Nats from Channing Daughters. And I'll put that in the comments. Channing Daughters are from Long Island. And they do, they make a whole slew of Pet Nats. And at times we have carried some reds from them. So I'm trying to think, the last time I carried a red from them was probably right when the pandemic started. So maybe in a month or 2, we might see them again. So I kind of only tend to get them about once a year. So I will for sure keep you guys posted on that because red Pet Nats are super fun. They're like, I don't know, like a really good dry Lambrusco. Really good dry Lambrusco, not just any. Awesome. Everybody's agreeing. Yeah. Yep. Appley. Yes, totally. My tasting note on this was apple skins. That's one of the tasting notes that I have down for this wine because it just reminded me so much of apples. While we're bringing that up, can we just talk about that wine for a second? So for those of you who joined me, it in the fall for apple component tasting class, which was so fun, and I really loved it. The wine that Ellen and Kristen and Patty are talking about is the Vigna di Alice de Man Prosecco. The winery stopped making the wine, and so there is no more of it. So I'm glad that we found you something equally appley and delicious, because I know, and I was the only place in town that was selling it. It was us. Pardon me. It was us and Sardine, and then Sardine obviously hasn't been working with it because they've been closed. And so we just had like our pick of it, and we just could like slowly worked our way through it. And then one day, gosh, I think it was like right around Thanksgiving or early December, just like the last 4 bottles showed up, and that was all of it that we'll ever have. So we do have another wine from them called Tajad. So all hope is not lost, and they make amazing wines, but it was really sad the day that happened. How long can you save the bottle you still have left? Like a year. I wouldn't keep it too much longer than that. All right, questions about the delicate nature of things. Oh, yeah, you had the Dijon for your New Year bubbly. It's such a delicious wine. This wine, I would say the brand would fall onto, for me, it's not the sweet end of the Pet Nat spectrum. I didn't pick anything particularly sweet because I know your palates. So you can get them that are a little sweeter than this, and you might find some that are significantly more floral. So depends on whether that sounds exciting to you, whether you want to explore that or not. Right? Cool labels on all the bottles. It's so true. All right, guys. If there are no other questions about the delicates grouping, we will move to our friend, the rosé. So, the difference in terms of flavors with rosés are that you still kind of have yellow fruit as a definite option. Lemon, yellow cherry. You might get some apple, but you might also get red fruit flavors. So raspberry, strawberry, things that you would normally pick up on in a regular rosé, or green fruit. So like a tart Granny Smith apple, that kind of thing. So lime zest comes up a lot. So I love them. I'm trying to remember the name of the drink. There's a drink, I want to say it's some sort of Ricky, but there's a cranberry lime cocktail that I love. And often rosé Pet Nats remind me of those things because they have like both the lime and the red fruit. You'll get floral notes often, and you'll also get some minerality, starts to show itself a little bit more. I have listed there some of the common varietals. So there are wineries that are making white from Cab Franc, and then there are wineries that are making rosé from Cab Franc. So you'll come across that. Pinot Noir is a little common. I mean, when I say common, it's like, okay, I've seen 3 wineries doing that. And then a very wide variety of Italian red grapes. Those are coming both from Italy and from here in the US. There's something about Italian grapes. They have that acidity that winemakers really just like. And so you'll see a decent number of Italian varietals. For your food pairings, it is I'm sorry, but like it's a lot of summer stuff, tomatoes and ripe berries and things like that, but it is delicious. It's still good with brunch. I mean, they're all delicious day drinking wines. Slightly firmer cheeses. You could have it with roasted chicken or something like that. So this wine, this is from Blaufränkisch, which is a red grape usually seen kind of really only in Austria. This is from Slovenia. I'm so excited. I haven't had this wine in a couple of months, and I was just like so excited when it showed back up at the shop last week. I was like, oh yeah, we've never carried it before. I tasted it and just waited for you. So, I don't know if you've had a wine from Slovenia. This is fun, right? This is what Pet Nat class is all about, new things. I had originally intended for this wine to be from the US so that you got at least one domestic wine in the mix. But the domestic rosé Pet Nat that I wanted, there was not enough of it available for class. There were just a handful of bottles. So I went back through my notes and I was looking and I was like, oh, right, that amazing Slovenian wine. And then I was like, well, that's awesome, because how often have you had Slovenian wine? So yay. I feel like this smells more beer-like. I don't know what other people are smelling. Oh, hard candy. Oh, interesting. This might be the unpredictable nature of things, because this sure is not smelling like the first time I had this wine. So let's find out. It is delicious. Not quite as, at least mine. I will say, I don't know, guys. This is definitely tasting different than the first time I tasted it. So you tell me what you're tasting. Ellen's saying it's wild, which makes me think maybe we are tasting a similar thing. The candy call, that it smells like hard candy. That's what I remembered from the first time I tasted it. So I think my bottle is, it's not bad. I will say it's not bad. It's just, different. Yeah, a little Jolly Rancher. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so awesome. I love it. Look at that. Everybody's saying Jolly Rancher like right at the same moment in time. I absolutely love it. So awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Watermelon. Absolutely. Absolutely. Watermelon and strawberry Jolly Rancher. Now I'm like the funkiness of it. There is that like back note of like savory funkiness that I think is so appealing, that makes it more interesting than just Jolly Rancher. I love a Jolly Rancher, but there's something more going on with it. The 2020, okay, so Jake actually bought, so we had both 2019 and 2020. And I do believe that some of you have 2020. I believe you do. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I believe most of you have 2020. Is that right? I think most of you have 2020. Yeah, most of you have 2020, which would explain, thank you. The light bulb just went off. Thank you, Jake, for clearing that up. So the 2020 is the fresher wine, obviously, and it is the fruity, Jolly Rancher, juicy fruit. And then the 2019 is what I have and what some of you have, and a beer quality about it. That's right. So that explains it. Thank you so much. I was like, what's happening here? And what is happening is that when I tasted the wine, I tasted it, I tasted the 2019 probably 5-ish months ago. So it would have been fresher. So it would have been the fruitier version. So if you are drinking 2020 and you like it, rock on. If you are drinking the 2019 and you like it, you could buy the 2020 from here forward and let it hang out for about 6 months and then taste it, and it would taste similar to this. Or if you have the 2019 and you're like, that beer quality is not what I'm looking for, you could definitely give the 2020 a shot, because it would be fruitier, brighter version. So I wasn't thrilled. I'm not going to lie. I was not thrilled when we received 2 different vintages of the same wine. I usually send things back in that case because I like consistency. It makes moments like this not happen. However, this is a good teaching moment. We get to talk about the variance in wine and how pet nats can change so quickly. So there you go. If we, what we will have on the shelf going forward, we have a little bit of 2019 left, maybe we have a little, yeah, I think we have a couple bottles of 2019 left, and then we'll be moving on to the 2020. So, 2019 is not very sweet or very bubbly. It is, it's quite bubbly, right? It is definitely like a bubblier wine. And Ellen, I love the comment about the Rothko orange or like burnt orange. It is such a beautiful color. It's just like, it's so stunning. I don't think the chill would have affected the color. I think that's just the wine. Like that's just Blaufränkisch. Rosés made from like still rosés made from Blaufränkisch often look like salmon. They have that like orangey color. So yay. As is true with all of these wines, there's not a through line here between this wine and somebody else's Rosé Pet Nat. You can like, you know, this is a good example of a Rosé Pet Nat, but it's not like if you got the Field Recordings Rosé Pet Nat that we have on the shelf, that it would be like, oh, it tastes exactly the same. So just like heads up that this is really dipping your toe in the water, but there's a whole pool out there to explore. So I'm going to read these. Let's see. Alexis is saying, do the grapes have different tasting notes when it's a typically made wine versus a Pet Nat? The Blaufränkisch we had last night had such different tasting notes, also different country, which may make the difference I'm referring to. So what I would say is that the difference between a red made from a grape and a rosé made from a grape are significant. Sometimes there's overlap. What comes to mind for me is Cab Franc, which I know you know, and hopefully some of you, the others, also know. So Cab Franc, when made into a red wine, has a herby, floral, vegetal thing. When it's made into rosé, it also kind of carries that through. So then a rosé from Cab Franc, a rosé Pet Nat from Cab Franc would carry that through a little bit. But there are all sorts of flavors that don't carry through from a red grape to a rosé. Or you'll just see like very different things. So if you were drinking a red Blaufränkisch that's made in America, right, where the grapes are definitely riper than they are in Slovenia, and now we're drinking a rosé version of that grape from a cooler climate that is, you know, a natural wine. I don't remember whose Blaufränkisch you were drinking last night, but like it may or may not be naturally made. So I hope that helps answer that question. With whites, Fabulist. Okay, so Fabulist, like non-natural, you know, like they're going for ripe. They're going for boozy, right? That's what makes their wine so delicious. You will see a bit more similarity between white, a still white wine made from a grape, and a Pet Nat made from that grape. So you will see much more similarities. So I think the biggest difference that you're probably seeing is between the red and rosé and the place. I think those are going to be kind of like the two biggest things. Okay, let's see. You think that the color looks like the peach emoji? I love it so much. Oh my God, we're going to run out of time. I almost sent one of my single male friends. We were talking about Georgia last week when that was what we were focused on before all hell broke loose. And I almost just sent him a peach emoji. And I was like, whoa. I was like, I'm a married woman. I can't just like be sending peach emojis to my guy friends. That'll just like, I have a very understanding spouse, and that still probably would not be the coolest thing I have ever done. So I did not do that. All right, let's see. I'm going to wrap up these questions, and we're going to move on to the third wine, if I can speak. Just out of curiosity, wondering how sweet the 2020 version of this is. Could someone compare the sweetness level of this one to the last bottle we tried? I don't have the 2020. I can speak from experience having tasted the 2019 when it was fresher. And I would have said that it was sweeter than the brand. Does that jive with those of you who have 2020? Would you say that the 2020 Batya is Baita. I think it's Baita. Sorry. I'll see. I'll keep you posted, Marcy and Josh, if anybody answers that. Yes, a bit sweeter. Sure, but not by a lot. That would be kind of probably just more of different fruit. Yep. Okay, and Nicole's saying their 2020 isn't very sweet. And Dory Lee's saying she doesn't find it sweet at all. So I wouldn't put it in like the holy jeebers, it's so sweet. And I know that sometimes when people are talking about candy, it can get people a little like, ooh, I'm not sure about that. But if you can imagine not sweet candy flavors, if that's possible. And then lastly, Kristen and Patty are asking, is Balfrankish a grape and not a German name for a more common grape? True. So, Pinot Blanc is Grauburgunder and Pinot Gris is Weissburgunder, to answer your questions. All right, guys, to make sure that we keep us rolling, ask away if you have lingering questions about rosé, and I will circle back to them, but I'm going to move us along to our third wine, which I am putting into the category of savory. I have been moving away from the all-encompassing word funky, because I think that it is getting bandied about a little too much. And I don't think that it necessarily describes wines as precisely as other words can. So my word of choice tonight is savory. To answer your question, Ellen, I did mention this before. It's up to you if you want to swirl the stuff or leave it. I would recommend probably for now, not like pouring yourself some of this wine without stirring up the yeast. And then as the bottle goes, as you drink more, then you can kind of decide for yourself. So with this little savory group, the fruit that comes out more is like less of the ripe fruit. So less peachy, ripe strawberry kind of stuff and more citrus stuff. Earth and mineral are kind of the things that come out, and a tanginess often, not always, but often. So when I'm talking about tang, I'm talking about either like tart fruit tang or like I'm standing by the ocean and there is sea spray in my face, that kind of tang. That's what I mean. So you kind of can experience it in both ways. They are often perceived as being less sweet. That doesn't necessarily mean that if you measured the sugars, they would be less sweet. But because they have kind of those other categories of flavors happening and smells happening, people don't automatically go to sweet. The varietals here, they really vary so widely that I didn't feel like it was worth kind of just, listing random things. The food pairings that I have here are for this specific wine. So this wine is from Mein Klang. They are a biodynamic winery in Austria. The grapes for this wine do come from Hungary, though, so it is technically Hungarian. And it's called Foam Vulcan. It used to be called Foam Somlo, but they changed the name. It's grown primarily on volcanic soil. So there you go. Ellen's saying if she tasted it blind, she wouldn't know that it was necessarily wine. I would say goza. I would say beer, like hands down. Hands down. Yep. Michael is saying it's dangerous for him to know that it exists because it's too good. That's an amazing compliment. I'm so glad. That's great. So, and you'll see this is like 11.5. So talking about day drinking. Yeah. The ABV seems on par with other wines. You mean like non-Pet Nat wines? like, I would say, I mean, it depends on what you drink, but like the average bottle of American red is going to be 13 and a half, somewhere in that range. So 2% difference is a pretty significant difference in ABV world. So, oh, you drink whites? Yeah, it's not that significantly lower then, I guess. But it's still, you know, relatively low, like in the grand scheme of a world in which there's Zinfandel. Right. It's a bit like a mimosa in a bottle. And then Katya and Drew were saying it smells like sauerkraut. That's like amazing. That's like just everything that I love about white or wine class in those two comments back to back. Somebody says it smells like sauerkraut and somebody says it smells like a mimosa. That's just great. That's just the world going round, guys. It's just the world going round. And Alexis is saying that it tastes like sauerkraut. Oh, funny. So funny. That she's coming back to funk. And I'm not against you using the word funk. I just want you to know that like I'm probably gonna try to describe it in other terms for my own professional development. So I'm just gonna keep going and, you know, using different words. But yes, if what you are coming back to is funk, great. And I'm so glad you love it. That's amazing. Patty and Kristen, if you're still with us, they asked me if they should have this wine because they don't enjoy funk. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, Mind Clang wines, they are pretty old school. Oh, Kristen doesn't. Oh, Patty, you do. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to speak for both of you. Then maybe you should have had this. Gosh darn it. I should have sent you home with one. Mind Clang makes a pretty lovely little spectrum of wine. And they refer to this as, they used to make a super, the foam solo, which is the previous version of this wine. I had customers return it to me because they told me it tasted like dirty socks. And when I said, nope, that's how the wine tastes, they were like, I'm sorry, what? And I had a friend text me and say like, that wine, I don't think that's right. And I was like, nope, that's how it's supposed to taste. And then on the other hand, I had customers who were like, this is my favorite wine I've ever had in my life. So they kind of like reshaped Foam Volcan a couple of vintages ago to be what they consider the shallow end of the funky pool. So take that for what you will. What we carry from them, we kind of mix it up a little bit, but we have their skin contact from time to time, and I would put that on the deeper end, personally. But what I do think, I'm with you. Oh, I love it. Ellen's like just mind blown. I can't believe this is made from grapes. That's so awesome. One of the reasons that I think pet nats are trendy and work well, pardon me, is that they do appeal, particularly wines like this, they do appeal to a beer drinker. They do appeal to the sour beer person. And I have had a number of customers where this is how they get into wine from Pet Nat, because they're coming from beer world, and this feels like vaguely familiar to them, and then they can go somewhere else from here. So, for what that's worth. Okay, so sorry, I'm going to circle back to questions, and then I'm going to take a vote because I want to know what everybody's favorites are. So Katya and Drew are asking sorry if we missed this, but what are the grape varieties here? It is on your invoice for a heads up, because I'm going to say them, and I'm probably going to not do the best job because I don't know Hungarian grapes super well. So it's 2 grapes. One is Harzsvalu, I believe is how you say it, and the other is Jarfark. They're listed on the invoice, and they're on the why is my mind blank? On our online website. They are listed there. So those are the 2 grapes there. They are indigenous varietals to Hungary. I've not heard of them before. The man who sells me this wine is really super well-versed in natural wines. Obviously, that's what he sells. And he has had Harzsvögelő, I believe. Yeah, your favorites, right? Oh, good old Jarvark. He said that he has had a white from that grape before, but that he had not heard of Jarvark before. So for what that's worth. And Jake is saying that it reminds him of the Tang Piquette from Field Recordings. For sure. That tanginess, right? That tanginess that I was talking about is exactly that. Or the tang reminded you of this. Yeah. And I would say that probably Field Recordings, is aware of the interest in tangy wines. So they know what they're doing. And let's see, the foam of Foam Volcan, my understanding is foam, like sparkling, foaminess is my understanding of where that name comes from. This completely reminds me of another wine I've tasted with you. It tastes like Calyx Prescriptive's perfume, and I like it. Oh my God, I love it. That's an amazing thing. I wonder what the other wine was. Maybe it's something else from them. If you have lingering questions, shout them out. Otherwise, let me know what your faves were. I'm really curious. And I think I hit the people who said that they didn't like Pet Nat. I think I at least got you to appreciate one. Yeah. Okay, awesome. I'm so glad. And you guys, you should, I almost thought about including the Foam Volcan for you. And then I thought, well, you went so far out of your way to say, please don't include a funky wine, that I was like, I don't want to, make you mad at me. And I'm really glad if your impression of Pet Nat is either that it's all like the last one and you were able to see, the lighter, more delicate side, or that you've had the lighter, sweeter ones and been kind of meh about them. I'm glad that, we're able to kind of show you a wider spectrum. Ellen says that all 3 were amazing and you think you like Pet Nat better than champagne. Girl, those are fighting words. All right. I mean, it's easier on your budget. much, while a $25 bottle might not be cheap, it's cheaper than a $60 bottle of champagne. So there we go. Pam saying that she liked the first one the best. Oh, yeah, right, that it's happening with snow outside. I know, I just, honestly, really, truly, I picked this one, or I scheduled this class because of the inauguration. I really did. I really thought Pet Nats are day drinking wines. And if there's one day in the winter time where we might just, not work, I think it might be Wednesday. So I wanted you guys to know about these wines before that time came. Awesome. Jake's asking if I've done a class on biodynamic wines. I have not done a class specifically on biodynamic wines. I did the natural versus conventional, which I believe you've watched or seen or participated in, which was like a side-by-side of a natural and conventional grape. And I'm trying to think if I have off the top of my head. I don't think that I have done a class about it, although some of the people here might remember better than me. I do feel like we talked about farming practices. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll do that. Carrie Jean was saying second was her favorite, partial to the Mind Clang, but your wife was the first one. Oh my God. Michael's saying that he likes the Foam Volcano more than water. First was both of your faves. Oh my gosh, I love it. This is so great. This is so great. Yeah, a day drinking tasting. I mean, Saturday classes are kind of day drinking, right? They're at 4:00. I'm so glad. I'm so glad there's like the spectrum. I also really always love when people, there's not just one wine that's everybody's favorite. Oh, Ellen, that note means everything to me. Thank you for introducing me to so much joy. That is everything. You know, that's like everything always. But man, particularly right now, God, I'm glad that I can bring you some joy. You all bring me so much joy. Awesome. I'm so glad. Thank you all for weighing in. If there are lingering questions, shout them out. Otherwise, it was so great to kick off 2021 in style with you guys. This is lovely. Thank you for the G-rated version of the emoji, Katie. I appreciate that. Oh, see, there you go. I spoke too soon. Butts. If you are not aware of what is coming, we have Piedmont Reds next week. And oh my God, my mind just totally went blank. My mind just went to tannins. Thank you guys. I was like, oh my God, when's at the end of January? And tannins class, thank you so much. Tannins class, which is one of my favorite classes because it's nerdy and it's really awesome. So Piedmont is on Thursday. It's going to be great. I'm going to email about the wines tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic. Katja and Drew are asking one last technical question. Is it lactic acid that creates the tang in number 3? Yep, sure is. Yes. Oh, good. You learned a lot. You've never heard of this wine before. That's so great. Yeah, there were so many people who responded that they don't think they've ever had one before. So I'm really so glad. Thank you guys. Happy New Year. And I hope you join me again soon. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.